My name is Abigail, I'm 27, and my whole life is devoted to working with special needs children. 3 years ago, I met Alan and was absolutely sure he was my destiny. But on the morning of my wedding, I walked into my parents' empty house and found only a short, devastating note. My sister Emma had always wanted to be first. And, as I now understand, her plan wasn't just to ruin my celebration. It was much deeper and more insidious. She was sure she had thought of everything. But there was one critical factor she missed. One detail she couldn't be bothered to check. She didn't know who Alan really was, or what kind of tsunami she would set off with her reckless act. If you're watching this video, tell me in the comments what city you're from. Please like, subscribe, and stay with me to see how my sister's attempt to humiliate me backfired in the most unbelievable way. I grew up in Boston, in a very ordinary family. We weren't rich or poor, just typical middle class. My dad, David, worked as a librarian in the city archives, and my mom, Sarah, ran a small flower shop. Money was often tight, but they always tried to make sure Emma and I had everything we needed. Maybe we couldn't afford expensive things, but our parents more than made up for it with their love and support. Emma was 2 years older than me. For as long as I can remember, she was the golden child. She had blonde hair and striking blue eyes, got top grades without visible effort, and had that easy confidence that drew people to her like a magnet. "Oh, so you're Emma's sister," teachers would often say, their eyes glinting with barely hidden expectations. I was always compared to her, and the comparison never favored me. In elementary school, reading was very hard for me. Letters and words seemed to swim on the page, and I had to work far harder than my classmates to make sense of a text. Luckily, when I turned 9, a very attentive teacher noticed my problems and helped me get the support and extra lessons I needed. It changed my life completely. I stopped thinking of myself as less than and realized my brain just learned differently. By high school, I had not only overcome my difficulties, I had decided to devote my life to helping kids who, like me back then, needed specialized support and understanding. While I was finding my path, Emma kept collecting awards and accolades. She graduated as valedictorian, won a full scholarship to Harvard, and captained the debate team. My parents tried their best to treat us the same, but I saw their eyes light up whenever Emma's achievements came up. When I brought home a great test grade I'd worked on for weeks, I got a polite, "Well done, honey." When Emma brought another flawless report card, we had celebratory dinners in her honor and the praise poured out like a river. One memory is especially vivid. I was 16 and had just been accepted to a selective summer program for future educators. Only 15 students from the entire state were chosen. I was over the moon. That same evening, as I shared the news, Emma casually announced she'd landed an internship at a major financial firm. My news instantly paled in comparison. "Sounds nice, Abigail," my mom said after 20 minutes of asking Emma about her job. "Will that program help with your college applications?" Going to college felt like liberation. I moved into a dorm at Boston University and, for the first time, had a chance to be myself, not just Emma's little sister. I threw myself into special education, joined student clubs, and finally made friends who valued me for who I was. In that new, freer atmosphere, I began to open up and discovered strengths and talents I hadn't known I had. Meanwhile, Emma graduated from Harvard with honors and almost immediately landed a prestigious job at one of Boston's top financial firms. Her career skyrocketed, each promotion more impressive than the last. Every family gathering turned into Emma's showcase. My parents, especially my dad, couldn't hide their pride as they told everyone about her 6-figure salary and chic downtown apartment. "Your sister is such a hard worker," my mom would say when we were alone. Always aiming higher. I could clearly hear the unspoken question in her words, "Why aren't you like her?" What they didn't seem to notice was that I, too, was building a meaningful life. I became an elementary school teacher for kids with special needs and developed new methods that truly helped my students. My salary was modest, but I gained something much more important, the sense that my work was changing lives for the better. But in my parents' world, helping children somehow always lost out to Emma's corporate success. As the years went by, Emma's rivalry didn't fade, it only grew. She did it gracefully, as if by accident. In conversation, she'd casually mention being considered for a bigger role or dating a prominent surgeon. If I shared any joy, she found a way to redirect attention back to herself. Once, I said my teaching method had been recognized across the district. Emma responded by announcing she'd just closed her first multi-million-dollar deal. That constant competition wore me down. I started avoiding family dinners and stopped sharing personal news, knowing any joy would be immediately minimized. I found refuge in my closest friends, especially my best friend, Chloe. I never had to explain anything to her, she saw and understood it all. Chloe kept reminding me that real success isn't measured by salary size but by the impact you have and how satisfied you are with your life. Alan's arrival changed everything. I finally met someone who seemed to truly see and value the real me. His mother, Eleanor, embraced me from the first meeting with a warmth I'd always lacked in my own family. The difference between her genuine interest in my work and my mother's polite indifference was striking. One day I told Eleanor how I'd helped a student overcome reading challenges. "You have a real gift, Abigail," she said. "Those children are incredibly lucky to have you." Simple words, but they meant more to me than all the praise I'd ever heard. As Alan and I grew more serious and the wedding day approached, tensions in my family, especially with Emma, intensified. Naively, I hoped my quiet happiness would melt the ice and earn their sincere joy for me. How wrong I was. 3 years earlier, our school launched a new volunteer program. Professionals from different fields came in once a week to read with kids who needed extra support. Alan was one of the first to sign up. On his form he modestly wrote business consultant as his profession. I remember his first visit. He came in wearing jeans and a simple shirt, carrying a well-worn copy of The Giving Tree. There wasn't a trace of showiness about him, just a calm, genuine warmth the kids felt immediately. He sat right on the floor, cross-legged, next to my most challenging student, Liam, who had severe dyslexia and almost always refused to open a book at all. "You know, at your age I hated reading too," I heard Alan say quietly. The words just danced in front of my eyes. It took me a long time to figure out how to handle them. Liam looked up, genuinely surprised. "Really? You were bad at reading too?" Alan laughed. "Worse than bad. Turns out you and I just need different approaches. Want me to show you a couple of tricks that helped me?" By the end of that first session, Liam was following the lines and studying the pictures with an interest I'd never seen before. What struck me wasn't just Alan's patience but his absolute sincerity. When the kids left for music, I went over to him. "What you did was incredible," I said. Liam rarely trusts anyone, especially that quickly. Alan smiled, and for the first time I really noticed his eyes, bright with intelligence and kindness. "I wasn't lying," he said. "I had major reading problems as a kid. One teacher changed everything. I guess I'm just trying to pay it forward." We got to talking about learning methods and the ups and downs of the work, and an hour flew by. "Maybe we could continue this over coffee?" he asked unexpectedly. I said yes without a second thought. Our first date was at a cozy cafe near my school. I learned Alan had grown up in the Boston suburbs, studied business and education at Boston College, and was genuinely passionate about making education more accessible. He asked thoughtful questions about my work and listened with real attention. There was none of that first date posturing, no list of achievements to impress me. Alan seemed genuinely interested in me, not in showing off. As we kept dating, I was increasingly surprised by Alan's modest lifestyle. He lived in a nice but not luxurious apartment and drove a reliable, practical car. He seemed indifferent to material things, so unlike most people I knew. Our dates were often simple but wonderful, long walks in the park, evenings cooking together. Even when he invited me to an expensive restaurant, he did it without any pomp, just to enjoy time together. After 3 months, Alan invited me to an annual charity gala hosted by a Boston nonprofit. It was our first truly formal event, and I had to borrow a dress from Chloe because I couldn't afford one on my salary. When he picked me up, I gasped. In a tuxedo, he looked like a movie star. "Wow, you really dressed up," I joked, suddenly feeling a bit out of place in a borrowed gown. "And you look absolutely stunning," he said with such sincerity that I immediately believed him and relaxed. At the gala, I was stunned by how many influential people in Boston seemed to know Alan personally. We were seated at a table in the very center of the room, right by the stage. During the program, the foundation director came on stage to thank the sponsors. "And of course," he said, "our deepest gratitude to the Donovan family, our principal benefactors, without whose generosity this evening wouldn't be possible." When he left the stage, I looked at Alan in surprise. "The Donovan Group is my family's company," he explained quietly, as if it were no big deal. "My father, Robert, founded it 30 years ago. It started as a small real estate agency but grew more than anyone expected." "How much more?" I asked, beginning to realize Alan's modest facade hid far more than I'd imagined. He paused. "Enough that we can support projects we believe in. Like this one." Everything became fully clear a bit later when a guest passing by patted Alan on the shoulder and jokingly called him the heir to the Donovan Empire. That phrase stuck in my head. When I got home, I opened my laptop. A few clicks and the whole picture unfolded. The Donovan Group turned out to be one of the largest commercial real estate corporations on the entire East Coast, with holdings across the country and abroad. The Donovans weren't just wealthy, they belonged to that caste of ultra-rich people you read about in magazines. The next day I asked Alan directly why he hadn't told me. He was very sincere. "I didn't mean to hide it," he said. "I've just seen too many times how people change when they find out about my family. In their eyes, I stop being just Alan and become that Donovan, a walking bank account instead of a person." I understood better than anyone. I myself had always been not Abigail, but Emma's sister. "Alan," I said, taking his hand, "I fell in love with the guy who can reach the toughest kids, who sits on the floor and reads with them, not with the name Donovan or your family's money." The closer we grew, the more I appreciated Alan's desire for a normal life. He'd seen too many peers warped by immense wealth, left without purpose or motivation. His parents, he said, had taught him that wealth is not just privilege, it's a huge responsibility. He took his work at the Donovan Group seriously but was determined to do something of his own, something more meaningful than simply growing capital. A year and a half later, during a picnic in the courtyard of the city library we'd helped renovate, Alan proposed. My answer was immediate and unequivocal, yes. We agreed our wedding would be about us, not money, an intimate, heartfelt ceremony reflecting our shared values, not his family's fortune. Alan fully supported my choice not to tell my family about his background yet. "I want them to get to know me first," he said, "not form opinions based on my father's bank account." When Alan first had dinner with my family, I immediately saw Emma sizing him up. Her eyes skimmed over his simple clothes and calm manners, and she silently slapped a label on him, "Not good enough." She practically ignored him all evening, constantly steering the conversation to herself and her recent promotion. "All the real action is in finance now," she declared, shooting him a telling glance. "So what was it you said you do, Adam?" she asked, deliberately mangling his name. "Alan," I corrected. "He's a business consultant." Emma put on a polite smile. "How cute. Something entry-level, right?" Alan met her condescension with quiet dignity. He didn't argue or defend himself. "I've been fortunate to work on some interesting projects," was all he said. Later, when Alan went to help my dad in the kitchen, Emma leaned toward me. "He's sweet," she whispered. "But I thought you'd aim higher, Abby. You always settle for less." Her words still had the power to sting, but something had changed. Alan's confidence had rubbed off on me. For the first time, I felt no shame or doubt. I was sure of my choice, and Emma's opinion no longer had power over me. Alan had shown me what real support looks like, and it changed how I saw myself. As we planned the wedding, I felt at the peak of happiness. We built our relationship on shared values and a deep emotional bond. His family welcomed me with open arms, especially his mother, Eleanor, who never made me feel awkward about my modest background or being a teacher. On the contrary, she often told Alan how lucky he was to find someone with such a kind heart and passion for her work. Being a teacher is the most important job in the world, she told me once. You shape the future, child by child. For the first time, I felt valued exactly as I was. I longed for my own family to one day see me the same way. We chose a spring wedding at a charming historic inn outside Boston, with beautiful gardens for the ceremony and a restored barn for the reception. Not flashy luxury, quiet, simple elegance. We wanted a small celebration, just our closest circle, about 85 guests, family and friends. We cared about authenticity, not appearances. This place is perfect, I said when we first toured it. It feels real. Alan smiled. I agree. No pomp, just sincerity. I like it. When we shared our plans with my parents, their reaction was lukewarm. My mom flipped through the brochure with mild skepticism. It looks cute, she said at last. But did you consider the Grand Hotel downtown? Your cousin Jennifer got married there, remember? It was so glamorous. Mom, we want it this way, I explained gently. Something more cozy and personal. My dad cleared his throat. About the money. We did save for your wedding, but you understand, after Emma's tuition and the economic downturns. Dad, please don't worry, I said quickly. Alan and I are paying for almost everything ourselves. What I didn't mention was that Alan's parents had offered to cover everything. We politely declined, wanting to do it ourselves, but they insisted on gifting us the photographer and florist. Alan accepted on our behalf, seeing how I struggled to fit our wishes into a modest budget. Let them, he said softly. It'll bring them joy, and good wedding photos are a memory for life. Emma's reaction to our plans was predictable. One evening, when Alan was working late, she dropped by to help. A barn reception, she grimaced, peering at my laptop photos. Isn't that a bit rustic? And a buffet dinner? Abby, people expect table service. We like the relaxed vibe, I said, trying to defend our choices. It's more us than something grand. Emma sighed theatrically. I just want your big day to be perfect, not something guests whisper about later. What do you mean? Nothing, she backtracked. It's just that a wedding is for the guests too. First impressions of your new family and all that. The closer the date came, the more frequent and cutting her comments became. She criticized everything. My choice of wildflowers for the tables was DIY, our decision to make our own playlist instead of hiring a band was bad taste. Emma met Alan's parents 6 months before the wedding, when we invited them to dinner. Robert and Eleanor Donovan arrived in an elegant yet understated car, dressed well but conservatively. Eleanor brought a homemade apple pie, Robert, a good but not vintage champagne. I could tell Emma was almost disappointed, she'd expected something more grand. I noticed her puzzlement at Eleanor's simple pearl necklace, as if she couldn't believe my future mother-in-law wasn't dripping in diamonds. Alan said you're in real estate, my dad said to Robert during dinner. Robert nodded. Yes, over 30 years now. Started from scratch and slowly grew. Any buildings we might know? Emma cut in, a challenge in her voice. Mostly commercial properties, Robert said evasively. Office centers, retail spaces. Nothing special. I caught Alan's eye across the table and saw the spark of amusement there. We both knew Robert was deliberately understating a business empire that included some of the best-known buildings in the country. As soon as the door closed behind Alan and his parents, Emma pulled me aside. "Are you sure about him, Abby?" she asked in a conspiratorial whisper. "His family seems nice enough, but clearly they aren't wealthy. You'll have to build everything from scratch with him." It took all my strength not to laugh at the irony. I kept my face serious. "We'll be fine, Emma. Not everyone measures success the way you do." 3 months before the wedding, I spent a weekend at my parents', and Emma happened to be there too. I accidentally overheard her on the phone with a friend. "Abigail's wedding?" "Yeah, I'm the maid of honor," she said. "It'll be cute, I guess. You know Abby, she always settles for less. The guy seems okay, but honestly, she deserves better. The whole thing is going to look embarrassingly cheap." I slipped away so she wouldn't see me, a dull ache spreading in my chest. That evening, I poured my heart out to Chloe and then to Eleanor, people who truly valued me. Eleanor listened with endless patience. "Your sister must be very insecure," she said gently. "Happy people don't build themselves up by tearing others down. Remember, this is you and Alan's celebration. It has nothing to do with her." A week before the wedding, my parents hosted a family dinner. The tension was thick. Emma talked non-stop about her business trip to London. The client took us to a 3-Michelin-star restaurant. Just the wine was $600 a person, she bragged. My mom listened, wide-eyed. "Incredible. Must have been an important client?" "One of the biggest," Emma said, pleased. I felt Alan squeeze my hand under the table. "Abigail, Alan, how are the wedding plans?" an aunt asked politely, trying to change the subject. I barely opened my mouth before Emma jumped in. "Oh, theirs will be very simple." "Extremely simple, right, Abby?" She loaded the word simple with meaning obvious to everyone. "We're just focusing on what matters to us," Alan said calmly but firmly. "Sometimes the most memorable celebrations aren't the most extravagant." "Wise words," my dad said unexpectedly, raising his glass. A rare moment of openly taking my side. As guests were leaving, Emma caught me in the hallway. "Look, I know you think I'm a snob," she said quietly. "It just hurts to watch you settle for less again. This modest wedding, this simple guy, don't you want more for yourself?" "Alan is more than I could have dreamed of," I replied firmly. "And our wedding will be perfect because it'll be about us. Not everything in life is about impressing people, Emma." The night before the wedding, I called my parents to confirm the last details. "We're all set on our end," my mom said tensely. "See you in the morning." "Mom, are you okay? You sound strange." "Just nervous for your big day, honey. Get some rest." I hung up with a slight sense of unease but chalked it up to pre-wedding jitters. Despite everything with Emma, I fell asleep happy. Tomorrow I'd marry the man I loved. Nothing could ruin that day. I had no idea what morning would bring. On my wedding day, I woke at 6:30 with excitement. The ceremony was at 2, but the stylist and makeup artist were due at 9. And my parents were supposed to come at 8 so we could have a calm breakfast together. "This is it," I whispered, getting out of bed. The apartment was unusually quiet as I went to the kitchen to start the coffee. My parents had spent the night in the guest room, and Emma insisted on a hotel room, claiming 3 women need their own space on a wedding morning. I was sure I'd hear my mom soon. She always woke with the sun. By 7:15, there was still no sound from the guest room. I knocked gently. "Mom? Dad? Coffee's ready." Silence. I knocked louder, then, anxiety rising, slowly opened the door. The room was empty, the bed perfectly made. Their things were gone. A spike of panic pierced my chest. Maybe they'd gone to the store. But they would have left a note. I checked my phone, no messages, no missed calls. I called my mom, voicemail. Then my dad, same. This is very strange, I muttered, trying to push away panic. I called Emma. Her phone didn't answer either. By 8 o'clock, panic was winning. I paced my apartment, dialing their numbers over and over, hearing nothing but rings. It made no sense. Where could my entire family have gone on the morning of my wedding? I was about to call Chloe when my eyes landed on the kitchen table. Behind the coffee maker lay a white envelope I hadn't seen before. My name was written in Emma's elegant hand. My breath caught. With shaking hands, I opened it and unfolded a single sheet. Dear Abigail. By the time you read this, we'll be on a flight to London with Mom and Dad. I know it's sudden, but I've secretly planned this trip for months as an anniversary surprise. I got an unbelievable deal on business class tickets and couldn't pass it up. Yes, I know your wedding is today. But let's be honest, Abby, your modest ceremony is hardly the event of the year. Mom and Dad were too polite to tell you, but they were dreading making small talk with your teacher friends in some old barn. So really, I did them a favor and spared them the awkward evening. We both know your wedding, like everything in your life, is about half measures and compromises. Alan seems like a nice guy, but it's obvious he doesn't aim high. Just another modest man you love so much. I told Mom and Dad we'll have a nice family dinner when we get back. Maybe we'll even help you organize a more respectable reception so guests won't have to whisper about how shabby it was. Don't be offended, Abby. This is better for everyone. You've always settled for less, and I've always reached for more. We're just different. Love, Emma. I collapsed into the nearest chair, my legs numb. The letter slipped from my hands. For a moment, the world went out of focus. One thought pounded in my head, they left. All of them. On my wedding day. This wasn't an accident, it was my sister's planned move, silently backed by my parents. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I tried to process it. So that's how little I mattered to them. My life. My choice. My future husband. In their eyes, I truly deserved this treatment. I don't know how long I sat there until my phone rang. It was Chloe, checking if I needed help. Abby, are you there? Hello? They left, I whispered. What? Who left? Abby, what happened? Everyone. My parents, Emma. They're in London. They left a note. They won't be at the wedding. Don't move. I'm coming, she said. 20 minutes later, Chloe burst into my apartment, wearing pajama pants under a coat. She found me still in the chair, staring at nothing. Oh, Abby, she breathed, hugging me. What happened? I silently handed her the letter. As she read, her face shifted, confusion, shock, then pure fury. She's cruel, Chloe hissed. And your parents just let her do this? On your wedding day? Unbelievable. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling Alan. No, wait, I protested weakly. Don't ruin his morning. Abby, she said firmly, your family just ran out on your wedding day. This is not the kind of news you hide from your future husband. Chloe was right. Alan had to know, though I dreaded telling him. What would he think of me? Of the family he was about to marry into? He arrived as fast as he could. His parents, Robert and Eleanor, were right behind him. One look at my tear-streaked face was enough. He didn't ask questions, he just held me while I sobbed into his chest. I'm sorry, I whispered. My family is awful. You don't deserve this. Hey, he said steadily, lifting my chin to meet his eyes. You have nothing to apologize for. Do you hear me? Nothing. Eleanor read the letter next, her face growing darker with every line. And Robert Donovan, whom I had always known as extraordinarily reserved, looked truly enraged. No decent parent would ever do this to their child, he said, his voice ringing with controlled anger. Least of all on her wedding day. Eleanor sat beside me and took my cold hands in hers. Abigail, listen. Family is the people who stand with you in hard times. Today, we are your family. And we're here. But what about the wedding? I whispered. My dad was supposed to walk me down the aisle. What will people think? They'll think your relatives missed the chance to be part of the happiest day of your life, Eleanor said firmly. Their actions speak about them, not you. Alan knelt in front of me. Abby, we can cancel. If you want, we'll move the date. Or we can marry today. It's your decision. I'll support whatever you choose. I looked at the three faces full of love and support, then down at Emma's cruel words. Something clicked inside me. My family had tried to prove I was second-rate. These people, who barely knew me, saw the best in me. We're getting married today, I said, my voice unexpectedly steady. Just as planned. I won't let them take this from me. Alan smiled, relief and pride in his eyes. That's the Abby I know. Eleanor squeezed my hands. In that case, Robert, we have work to do. Robert immediately pulled out his phone. What work? I asked, confused. Eleanor's smile was determined. We're going to make this the best day of your life. Your sister thinks your wedding is second-rate? Let's show her how wrong she is. While I showered and tried to pull myself together, Eleanor sat in the living room, commanding the phone with the voice of someone who doesn't hear no. Yes, I understand it's a rush. The Donovan Group will pay triple. Excellent. We'll expect them by noon. While we waited for the makeup artist, Chloe helped with my hair. My hands still shook too much. What is going on? I asked. Eleanor hasn't put her phone down. Chloe smirked. Let's just say your future mother-in-law is a force of nature. You do realize the Donovan name opens every door in this city, right? I nodded uncertainly. I knew they were wealthy, but I'd never seen them use their influence. Well, Chloe said, she's opening them all right now. Just wait. 3 hours later, as we drove to the venue, I began to understand. Instead of the local stylist I'd hired, a celebrity artist arrived, flown to Boston on the Donovans' private jet. My simple bouquet became a work of art with rare orchids. Then a designer arrived with 3 different veils to choose from, each one costing more than my entire dress. This is too much, I protested to Eleanor. Not at all, she said firmly. Abigail, this is your day. Let us take care of you. When we reached the inn, I could hardly believe my eyes. The already beautiful setting had been transformed. The garden for the ceremony was draped in thousands of white roses, and instead of our speakers, a string quartet was tuning up. Inside, a coordinator greeted us. Mrs. Donovan, everything is ready. Extra staff is on site, and the chef expanded the menu as requested. On the way to the bridal suite, I noticed local news vans at the entrance. Why are there reporters? I asked Alan when he came in. He looked a little sheepish. About that. I think my dad mentioned to a couple of friends that the Donovan heir is getting married today. Apparently that counts as news. But we wanted to keep it low-key. I exclaimed, overwhelmed by the scale of it all. Alan took my hands. I know, I'm sorry. But after what your sister did, my father thought it might be interesting for them in London to see on the evening news exactly who you're marrying. The reminder of their betrayal hurt, but I can't deny a small, vengeful spark of satisfaction at the thought of Emma finding out that the nobody she despised was actually the heir to one of the largest business empires in the country. Are you sure you're okay with this? Alan asked, worried. We can still scale it back. I looked around the luxurious room and took a deep breath. It's not what we envisioned, but, yes, I'm okay. Your parents are incredibly kind. They adore you, Abby. We all do. As the ceremony drew near, a new wave of panic hit. Who will walk me down the aisle? I whispered to Chloe. A knock came at the door. Robert Donovan stood there. Abigail, he said gently, I know I can't replace your father. But it would be my great honor to escort you today. Tears sprang to my eyes. Thank you, Robert. I would be very glad. The ceremony was like a fairy tale. The garden was full of guests, including several prominent Boston faces, clearly friends of the Donovans. As Robert led me down the aisle to a beaming Alan, I felt everything at once, the bitterness of my family's betrayal and the immense gratitude for the new family I was gaining. Looking into Alan's eyes and saying our vows, I knew I hadn't settled for less, as Emma claimed. I had found something priceless. During his vow, Alan set aside the prepared text. He looked straight into my eyes and added what I didn't expect. Abigail, I admire your courage and resilience. Today, when you had every reason to step back, you chose to move forward with your head held high. That inner strength is what I fell in love with, and it's why I'm the happiest man alive today. By then, there weren't many dry eyes in the garden. The reception that followed was magical. Our restored barn became a dream hall with crystal chandeliers and lavish flowers. Instead of the buffet we planned, guests were served a 5-course dinner. Instead of our playlist, a live orchestra played. Photographers moved discreetly, and a video crew filmed a real wedding movie, not the modest clip we'd originally booked. I noticed flashes in the background all evening, reporters at work. The next day, I'd see our wedding in Boston society pages with headlines like, Heir to the Donovan Empire weds in private ceremony, and, A union of two worlds, great fortune meets a great heart. As Alan and I swayed in our first dance, he whispered, Well, Mrs. Donovan, are you happy? Despite everything that morning, I realized I was deliriously happy. Your family turned a disaster into a fairy tale. Our family, he corrected softly. You're one of us now. The evening ended with a grand fireworks display, Robert's surprise. As guests watched the sky, Alan held me. Not bad for a modest ceremony, huh, he teased. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had all day. Emma must be furious. It's perfect, I said, and he kissed me under the shimmering sky. As we left under a shower of rose petals, I realized something important. The absence of my family, which had felt like the end of the world that morning, hadn't ruined anything. It highlighted who truly celebrated with us. Everyone there had come to share our day sincerely. For the first time in my life, I wasn't compared to anyone. I was celebrated for who I am, and it was an incredible feeling. The next morning, Alan and I flew to Fiji on his family's private plane, another wedding surprise. Instead of the modest hotel we'd booked, a private Donovan villa overlooking the Pacific awaited us. I hope you don't mind, Alan smiled as we settled into our seats. I think my parents got a little carried away. I laughed. Your parents are the best. Our parents, he corrected again, taking my hand. On the flight, I made a decision. I'm turning my phone off for the entire honeymoon, I told Alan. No social media, no news, no drama. Just you and me. He nodded. Perfect plan. We spent 2 weeks in paradise, far from the world. The villa was secluded and beautiful, the staff discreet. We swam, walked on empty beaches, explored villages, and just enjoyed each other. I never touched my phone. On the morning we left Fiji, I finally turned it on. It exploded with 2 weeks of notifications, dozens of missed calls from my parents and Emma. The first message I opened was from Emma, sent on our wedding day. My heart raced. Abigail, call me now. Why didn't you tell me Alan is one of those Donovans? His family owns half of Boston. Your wedding is on the news, even here in London. More messages followed, increasingly panicked. From Emma, Mom and Dad just saw a report about your wedding on international news. They're in shock. Call us. Another, Abby, I had no idea. I'm begging you, call me. We need to talk. And finally, I'm sorry about the letter. I didn't know. Please, just call. My parents' messages were similar, bewilderment and belated remorse. Sweetheart, we made a terrible, terrible mistake. Please call as soon as you can. Abigail, we never should have gone. We're so sorry. We're cutting the trip short and flying home tomorrow. Just let us know you're okay. We're begging you. Reading their panic, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction, old hurt, and a power I'd never had. For the first time, I decided whether to respond, not waited for a scrap of their approval. I showed the phone to Alan. He read the messages, one eyebrow arched. Funny how your sister suddenly wants to talk the moment she finds out who my family is, he said dryly. It's not even about you, I said, the thought finally crystallizing. She doesn't care who you are as a person. She cares about status, and how it reflects on her. What will you do? Alan asked. Nothing. For now, nothing. They abandoned me on my wedding day. A few panicked apologies can't fix that. I'll support whatever you decide, he said. When we got back to Boston, more messages awaited. Emma swung from apologies to anger and back to pleading. It's been a week, Abby, stop acting like a child. Do you realize how stupid we all look? People are asking questions. My parents' messages were more apologetic, but even they were tinged with concern for appearances. People at church are asking why we missed your wedding. We don't know what to say. Your father ran into Robert Donovan at the yacht club. It was so humiliating. Please, let's fix this. Alan and I settled into our new, spacious apartment in a historic building, ironically, owned by his family. I returned to work and, thanks to a Donovan Educational Foundation grant, began expanding my program. 2 weeks later, Chloe came over for dinner with the latest updates. Your sister is trying to save her reputation, she reported. Apparently, lots of awkward questions at her office. How was she in London while her sister was at the wedding of the year? How do you know? I asked. Remember my cousin works there? He says Emma keeps talking about an urgent family situation. No one believes her, especially after the wedding photos where everyone's happy except your family. I couldn't help a small, slightly vengeful smile. And your parents, Chloe continued, came back early. My mom ran into yours at the supermarket, said her eyes were puffy from crying. Now they're telling everyone they mixed up the wedding date. Alan shook his head. Right, mixed up the date, and it just happened to match those London tickets. Weeks passed. Messages from my family came less often but grew more desperate. I stayed silent, still not ready. The wound was too deep, the betrayal too fresh. One evening, 2 months after the wedding, I received a voicemail from my mom that was different. Abigail, I understand why you're silent. What we did is unforgivable. We let Emma convince us her idea was good and failed you as parents. There's no excuse. We're not asking for forgiveness, only for a chance to apologize in person. We love you, honey. Please call when you're ready. That night, I played the message for Alan. It sounds like she's finally starting to understand, I said softly. Do you want to see them? He asked. I thought a long time. Not yet. And definitely not Emma. Maybe, eventually, I can talk to Mom and Dad. But I need more time. Take all the time you need, he said, hugging me. What I didn't say out loud was that this silence was healing. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone's approval. I just lived, on my terms, surrounded by people who valued me. My relationship with the Donovans grew even closer. Eleanor invited me to join their foundation's board, where my practical experience mattered. Robert asked my thoughts on a new affordable housing project for teachers. You have a perspective we don't, he said. Your voice matters here. Then, on a rainy October evening, Emma appeared at our building without warning. The concierge called us, and Alan and I paused, deciding what to do. It's your call, he said. I can tell them not to let her up. I took a deep breath. No. I'll go down to the lobby. Not up here. And only for a few minutes. In the elegant lobby, wearing a soaked designer coat, Emma looked lost and out of place. She stepped forward to hug me, then stopped when I didn't move. Abby, she began, her voice trembling, thank you for coming down. I nodded silently. I've been trying to reach you for months. I need to explain about the wedding. There's nothing to explain, I said evenly. Your letter said it all. You thought my wedding was an embarrassment and Alan a loser. Turns out you were wrong on both counts. She flinched. I didn't know who his family was. If I had known. That's the entire point, Emma. If you'd known he was rich, your attitude would have been different. Just like you treated me differently my whole life because I didn't fit your idea of success. That's not true, she protested weakly. Isn't it? I met her eyes. You spend our whole lives making me feel less. And on the one day meant to be about my happiness, you deliberately sabotaged it because my choices weren't good enough for you. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled. I made a horrible mistake. I'm so sorry, Abby. People at work, they look at me differently. Some clients ask to be reassigned. Dad's friends avoid him. Mom cries all the time. Even now, her apology was more about consequences for them than the pain they caused me. I'm sorry you're having a hard time, I said firmly but without malice. But I'm not ready to pretend nothing happened. What can I do? She asked, despair in her voice. How do I fix it? I don't know, Emma. Some wounds cut too deep. I need time. As she left, hunched and defeated, I felt no triumph, only a quiet certainty that things would never be the same. 5 months after the wedding, my life had blossomed. With the Donovan Foundation's support, my program scaled statewide. I was invited to speak at conferences. Alan and I had a true partnership, built on equality and support despite our families' different backgrounds. We decided everything together, from household details to which charities to back. His family's wealth was a tool we used wisely, but it never defined our lives. I'm so proud of what you're doing, Alan told me one night after I shared a program milestone. You're genuinely changing those kids' lives. And his praise was sincere, not the strained courtesy I'd waited my whole life to hear from my parents. One crisp autumn day, I finally agreed to meet my parents. We chose a small cafe midway between our homes. Alan offered to come, but I declined. I need to do this on my own, I said. Thank you for the support. They were already there. They looked tired and older. My mom stood hesitantly, unsure how to act. I gave her a brief, polite hug. Thank you for agreeing, Abigail, my dad said, his voice uncharacteristically emotional. It means a lot to us. I nodded, signaling that I'd come to listen. It was their turn to talk, not mine. What we did is unforgivable, my mom began, tears welling. Leaving on our daughter's wedding day, there's no excuse. Why? I asked simply. That question had haunted me for months. They exchanged heavy looks. We ask ourselves that every day, my dad said at last. Honestly, we just let Emma talk us into it. She pitched the London trip as a unique opportunity, practically free through her work connections. But it was my wedding day, I repeated, the pain still raw. We know, Mom whispered. We convinced ourselves you wouldn't mind, that your modest ceremony wasn't that important, and that we could celebrate later. We were so wrong. So terribly wrong. It wasn't just about missing the wedding, I continued, desperate for them to finally understand. Your choice revealed how you value me. How you've always valued me compared to Emma. My dad looked confused. What do you mean, compared to Emma? My whole life I was second. My successes were cute, Emma's were grand. My career was noble, hers was prestigious. My decisions were questioned, hers celebrated. They sat stunned. When you chose to fly to London with her instead of attending my wedding, it was the culmination of a lifetime of showing me my place. My mom reached a trembling hand across the table. Abigail, we had no idea you felt this way. We never wanted you to feel less important. But that's exactly how I felt, I said simply. Again and again. My dad swallowed, visibly shaken. You're right. Looking back now, I see it. We did favor Emma. Not on purpose, it's just, she demanded so much attention, took up all the space. And you were always so strong, so independent. We thought you were fine. Being independent doesn't mean I didn't need your support, I said quietly. Or your approval. We're so sorry, Abigail, my mom said. Not just for the wedding, but for all the years we made you feel second. You never were, to us, never. We're seeing a family therapist now, my dad added. Trying to understand how we got here. We'd like you to join us when you're ready. Their willingness to seek help surprised me. It was a serious step. What about Emma? I asked. Is she going? They glanced at each other. No, Mom admitted. She refuses to acknowledge the deeper problem. Says we're exaggerating. I wasn't surprised. Emma's whole identity was built on being the golden child. Admitting the truth would shatter that image. I'll need time, I told them. I appreciate what you're doing, but trust doesn't rebuild in a day. We understand, Dad said. We're grateful for any chance you give us. We agreed to meet again in a month. As I left the cafe, I felt a great weight lift. Just saying out loud what had hurt me for years had already begun to heal me. In the following months, we met regularly. Sometimes the conversations were hard, we reopened old wounds. Sometimes awkward, as we tried too hard to fix everything. But step by step, we built a new, more honest relationship. Emma stayed distant. According to my parents, she was consumed with salvaging her reputation at work, which had suffered after the wedding fiasco. For our first anniversary, Alan and I hosted a small dinner. We invited only those who had stood by us in our hardest moment, Chloe and her boyfriend, Eleanor and Robert, a few close friends. After some hesitation, I invited my parents. The evening was the opposite of our lavish wedding, a warm, intimate gathering. Over dessert, we shared our news. We were expecting a baby in the spring. We're going to be grandparents, my mom gasped, covering her face with her hands. If you want to be, I said carefully. This child will need loving, caring grandparents. There's nothing we want more, my dad replied sincerely. It's our chance to do better with the next generation. Eleanor raised her glass. To new beginnings and the family we're building together. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from Emma. A real, handwritten letter, very unlike her. I opened it when I was alone. Dear Abigail. I've tried to write this dozens of times. No words can undo what I did. The truth I couldn't admit, even to myself, for far too long is that I was jealous of you. Not of Alan's money, which I didn't know about, but of your happiness. You found someone who loves you as you are. You built a career that brings you joy. Your life has meaning, not just status. I chased prestige and ended up with nothing. All my life, I tried to prove I was better than you. It was exhausting and pointless. And it cost me a relationship with the one person who always looked at me with love, no matter what. Next week I'm starting therapy. I need to understand why I was so desperate to outshine your light. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to change, to become someone who might one day deserve a place in your life again. Congratulations on the baby. You'll be a wonderful mother, because you know what unconditional love is. With regret and hope. Emma. I sat for a long time, rereading the letter. For the first time, Emma wasn't talking about a single act but about the deeper issue. And for the first time, her apology wasn't about how it affected her, but about the pain she caused me. I didn't reply right away. One honest letter couldn't undo years of rivalry and belittlement. But I kept it, I didn't throw it away. A month later, I suggested we meet for coffee. Alan was worried. Are you sure? You don't owe her anything. I know, I said. I'm doing it for me, to see if there's anything left to save. The meeting was tense and awkward, nothing like a movie reconciliation. Emma looked different, less polished, more real. Thank you for coming, she said, without her usual swagger. Your letter surprised me, I replied. It felt honest. She nodded. Therapy is teaching me to be honest, first with myself. It's harder than I thought. We talked for about an hour, choosing our words carefully, like we were meeting for the first time. I set clear boundaries. There would be no instant forgiveness or return to the past. Only small, slow steps towards something new, based on mutual respect. I'm open to meeting like this sometimes, I said. We'll see where it goes. But you need to understand, things won't be like before. I understand, she said quietly. I'm grateful for any chance. Spring approached, and our baby's due date. I often thought about the journey of that year. My wedding day began with a bitter betrayal but led to deeper changes than I could have imagined. The pain was real, but so was the growth that followed. We named our son Robert, after Alan's father. When he was born, my parents came to the hospital, but behaved with restraint, patiently waiting their turn to hold their grandson after Alan's parents. Emma sent a huge bouquet but didn't come uninvited, understanding that trust would rebuild very slowly. Looking at my son's tiny face, I made him a silent promise. He would always know he was valued, not for achievements, but for who he was, with all his talents and struggles. The family I'm building will be different. It will be acceptance, not competition. Support, not judgment. The bitter lesson I learned on my wedding day ultimately gave me the strength to break the cycle and create something healthy for the next generation. In the end, my sister's cruel plan became the greatest gift. It gave me the freedom to define family for myself, to surround myself with people who genuinely rejoice in my happiness instead of minimizing it. That became the true treasure I gained on my wedding day, worth far more than any Donovan fortune. Have you faced family situations that made you see love and acceptance in a new light? Have you ever watched someone's attempt to hurt you lead to something better? Share your stories in the comments. If this story resonates, please like and subscribe so you don't miss new videos. Maybe share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, your worth does not depend on whether others are able to see it.